So, why does E string spiccato sometimes feel more difficult? My theory is that when we're on the G and the D strings, just because of where they sit on the violin, we very naturally feel the weight of the bow on the pinky, right? And we can just test that out by holding our bow parallel to the floor, and we feel that, of course, the pinky's working. We feel a certain amount of pressure on the pinky, which is just keeping the bow from dipping down into the floor, right? And if we go more vertical or even like in that kind of 45-degree range, we feel less and less of that pinky kind of engagement. And so when we're on the E string, for most of us, we're not even quite 45 degrees. Like that's maybe the A string. And then when we get to the E string, we're maybe just, pretty vertical, honestly. And so we don't really have that pinky engagement unless we make the pinky engage. And so what I think we should shoot for here would be to have a similar feeling on all the strings on the pinky tip. So here on G and on D, it's kind of just natural. We're holding the bow up. And then on A, maybe the bow wants to kind of dip down into the string a little bit more because just naturally we don't have that engagement as much. So we have to kind of create it for ourselves. So we literally push the pinky into the stick a little bit and we kind of that lifts the bow away from the string a little bit. And then even to a greater degree, when we go to the E string, we're kind of pushing a little bit and just keeping that bow out of the string. And we see that just really naturally, how we can leverage that bow away from the string with just the pinky pushing in, the pinky pushing in. And we could try it on the strings too. So if we have our G string spiccato, of course, if the pinky is weak and it's not wanting to hold the bow at all like this, we might have problems. But pretty naturally, it just kind of works. We go to D string, just kind of works. We get to A string, yeah, we have to start to push the pinky in a little bit. And so we just keep in mind that pressure again. Like, can we keep a similar feeling on the A string than to what we had on the G? And then we get to the E string, and now we really have to push in. Or we start to just kind of die on the string, right? We just kind of let it be sort of how we normally feel when we're holding the bow at that angle. It's like a little bit of pinky pressure, not much. We get kind of this kind of sound, which is, it's coming in and out. So we don't want that. We want that nice, strong consistency. Wherever we go. But we have to manage that by managing the pinky. So if the pinky is weak, then some things that we can try. One would be simply taking the ring finger and maybe even the middle finger over a little further, just so that we know that we have the curve and we're not kind of risking having like just a really stretched out pinky that just literally can't curve because it just doesn't have enough room to reach. So that would be the first thing, to make sure it really is curved, and then practicing some pinky lifts. So I also like to set my pinky a little bit on the palm side of the stick, so it's not right on top. We have these little angles of the stick, how it's carved, and so I place just the pad of my pinky actually on the inside kind of facet of that octagon, and then maybe the nails a little bit on top. But that really helps so that, again, it's more curved. But also when I do maybe some tilting of the bow, like if I'm coming in towards the frog, or I just want it to be a softer sound, I'm not going to risk losing my pinky over the top, So there's a few factors for that. The curling and then just having more stability is good. And so you can set that up and do some pinky lifts, and that is helpful. And we could also do little exercises like if we're maybe sitting at a desk or at a table and we're going to push our pinky into the tabletop, and then without moving it, we can imagine dragging the pinky in, or you can do kind of it's like an isometric squeeze. You could push, you could kind of pull in and then push down kind of gradually as you go. Basically, we want to ripple up the musculature underneath the pinky, make it really nice and strong under there. So you'll feel it kind of just engage. And so you could do that on a tabletop like that. But really, if we just get a good setup here and we practice doing those lifts, that's really good. Sometimes we want to maybe do a little bit of this stuff too. There's maybe some benefit to that as well. So we can just kind of hold the bow, and here I'm a little bit maybe lower than 45 degrees, but just you want to feel it out for yourself, and whatever you can do with a strong pinky is good. So if you're more here and you're trying to wave the tip back and forth, that's good. Or even doing pinky lifts at this angle would be a starting point if this feels too dramatic. You will develop a little callus on your pinky after doing some of these. And if you're doing a lot of spiccato, a lot of collé strokes as well, you get a little callus there. And that's just the body saying, okay, you're going to be using this, so I guess I better buff up here a little bit. But yeah, just some of this, because again, it's getting these muscles underneath to ripple up. So pulling that tip back and forth, get to the point where you're parallel to the floor. That's a pretty strong pinky. I have definitely been doing this for a while, but it didn't start off that easily. So don't feel at all intimidated if you can't do that. But that, to me anyway, seems like a big portion of why we might experience some differences in our bounceability from string to string. I hope it helps.